A quorum of 100 voters is present. The special town meeting is called to order. The meeting has been called pursuant to warrant dated October 5th, 2023, duly served and returned. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Be seated. A couple of housekeeping matters. Fire regulations prohibit standing or sitting in the corridors, aisles, or exits. Please take note of the emergency exits. We've set up some chairs here in the mezzanine. Our hope is that we can get everybody into the auditorium. We do have a provision for an overflow room tonight if we need it. The meeting is not being recorded. It is being recorded by, yes, there they are, by CTSB, and will be available for later viewing. Please turn off your cell phone ringers as a courtesy to your neighbors. Introductions on the front here. We have on my right, Town Clerk Jennifer Messina, Town Council David Doneski. On the left is the Select Board, Steve Bannon, Lee Davis, Eric Gabriel, got to get them right, Garfield Reed, and Ben Elliott. Not in the same order as my list. I'm really worried they're going to leave. They'll stay for this. I will explain some of the procedure being used for the meeting tonight. The town meeting will be governed by the Constitution and general laws of Massachusetts and the Charter and bylaws of the town of Great Barrington. Town meeting time is the reference guide for matters of parliamentary procedure. Only registered voters of Great Barrington may vote. Persons who are not Great Barrington voters may address the town meeting with special permission from the moderator. 6 non-voters have requested and been granted permission to address the meeting, principally to respond to questions about the warrant articles. Motions and amendments, other than procedural matters, must be in writing and presented to the moderator and the clerk, preferably before you make them. If you wish to make a motion or to speak on a motion or an amendment, go to the area of the microphone. Be prepared to speak when your time comes. Please state your name and your voting address, and then wait to be recognized by the moderator. When a motion is made and seconded, the person who made the motion will normally be recognized to speak first in support of it. You may speak once on a motion for a time not to exceed 3 minutes. To be sure we stay on track, I will keep track with my timer here on the dais. It turns yellow when there is 30 seconds left. It turns red when 3 minutes are up. The moderator has discretion to grant more time for special presentations, and there will be more time granted for the presentation on the school merger. Statements should be addressed to the pending motion. Please be considerate and do not repeat points that have been made by previous speakers. Statements in debate are made to the moderator, that is to say, to the entire meeting and not to other individuals. Questions should be addressed to the moderator. The moderator will direct the questions to appropriate individuals to respond. Because we expected a lot of voters tonight, we did set up an overflow room. Right now, it does not look like we will need it, but just in case we do end up with people in the overflow room, I will ask in a minute that you approve the appointment of Steve McAllister as an assistant moderator to preside in the overflow room. They have a video feed in there. They will be able to vote in there. However, if they wish to speak, they will need to come into the microphone here in the auditorium. A bit of fine point, because this always comes up. A motion to call the question, that is to end debate and move directly to vote on the pending motion, matter is not in order until every voter has had an opportunity. Wait a minute, that is not the case. I'm using an old script. Thank you. We changed that rule. It must be made like any other motion from the microphone in the hall after the speaker has been recognized by the moderator. This motion is not debatable. It requires a 2/3 vote. A long colored card has been issued to each voter. Use that card to vote when I call for a vote by show of hands and to re-enter the auditorium. To tally the vote by a show of hands, a counter, a teller has been assigned to each section and to the overflow room. The tellers will report their numbers from the microphone so we can add them up quickly. We've been doing that in the meetings outdoors, and it's worked quite well. There are some colored ballots in your booklet in case we have secret ballot votes. If there is one, I will tell you which colored ballot to use. There will be ballot boxes in the back for those purposes. For the school item, there is a special ballot, which will be counted specially. There are two big black boxes in here and one in the overflow room. When the time comes to vote on the school item, your ballot, that special sheet, will go into those boxes. Another procedural nicety, changing the method of voting on a motion is done by making an incidental motion during the debate. That motion requires a majority vote. I have discretion to call for a secret ballot in other circumstances. In the event of a tie vote, the motion fails. The moderator will not exercise a casting vote. A motion for reconsideration may be permitted only if made within 15 minutes after the announcement of the result of the vote to be reconsidered. Only one motion for reconsideration is allowed for any individual article. We expect to conclude the business tonight. A couple of preliminary matters. Is there a motion to dispense with the reading of the warrant? Motion made and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? We are dispensing with the reading of the warrant. To preside in the overflow room, I've asked Steve McAllister to be assistant moderator. Is there a motion to appoint Steve McAllister as assistant moderator for this meeting? So moved. Second? Moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. I will also entertain a motion that authorizes the moderator, pursuant to General Law 39, Section 15, to declare a two-thirds vote. This could speed up some procedural matters. None of our main motions require a two-thirds vote. So moved. So moved. Yes, moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Thank you for your faith in me.
Mr. Moderator, there's a procedural item I think needs attention at this point.
Name and address, please.
John Breasted, 151 Christian Hill Road. The operative word begins with L. This is a legislative assembly. I've never heard a moderator at town meeting say that. It's a legislative assembly. It is not the same thing as a slow motion voting opportunity. I never heard that word from Mr. McCormick, and I was hoping to hear it from you tonight. So in a legislative assembly of citizens and a town meeting, things are quite different from at the fire station downtown or at the Hoosey Dome. That's all I want to say.
Thank you. We expect to take up the articles in the order they are printed in the warrant. And thus we will begin with Article 1. Is there a motion?
Steve Bannon, 19 Fairview Terrace. I move that the town accept the provisions of Sections 16 to 16I, inclusive of Chapter 71 of the general laws providing for the establishment of an 8-town regional school district, together with the towns of Alford, Egremont, Monterey, New Marlborough, Sheffield, Stockbridge, and West Stockbridge, to be known as the Southern Berkshire Hills Regional School District, in accordance with and subject to the provisions set forth in Article 1 of the warrant for this town meeting.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Before we get to a presentation, I would like to acknowledge that Steve Bannon, Deb Phillips, and Peter Taylor have been our representatives of the town on the committee that has come up with this recommendation. It's a particularly personal point because under the state law, I was responsible for appointing them, and I would like to thank them for their time and service on this project.
Thank you. Deb Phillips, Highland Drive, and As Michael said, I've represented Great Barrington on the School District Planning Board for the past 3.5 years and chaired the Educational Quality Subcommittee. What we'd like to do tonight is give you a brief overview of why we are voting tonight and what a yes vote will mean on the issue. As you may know, the town of Egremont voted no to the merger. We still need to know how the residents of Great Barrington feel about it to know how we move forward from here. The options include asking Egremont to reconsider in light of their neighbors' desires, tweaking the agreement and considering a 7-town district, or deciding to go our separate ways. Your vote matters in this decision. I want to start just by reminding us of how much we already do together as a region. Our friendships cross boundaries, we shop, we work, get health care, and socialize across town boundaries, so why should we not educate our children that way? The recent history of this process is that in the spring of 2019, the Berkshire Hills School Committee sent a letter to the Southern Berkshire Regional School District School Committee to ask if they wanted to discuss the possibility of merging. The select boards of all 8 towns were copied on that letter. In response to that letter, the 8 select boards agreed that they wanted to study the possibility. In early 2020, our 8-town board was formed, and it was comprised of 3 members from each of our 8 towns, including at least 1 school committee representative from each town. Superintendents have been part of the study from the beginning, and we've held over 180 public meetings since we formed and collectively invested thousands of hours in this work. Next slide. Before we started looking at possible solutions, we wanted to be sure that we understood our current challenges. So we engaged a research team, the Massachusetts Association of Regional Schools, to help us figure out where the 2 districts are now. And what we found is a significant decline in enrollment, rising operational costs, flat state revenue, and a limited ability to offer a broad range of programs and supports. Next slide, please. This slide is a visual representation of the decline in enrollment with the combined districts at the top, Berkshire Hills next, and the Southern Berkshire School District at the bottom. While the decline has slowed, Berkshire Regional Planning Commission has noted that as a region, we need to attract 660 more people aged 20 to 49 annually to stabilize our school-age population. For the Berkshire Hills and Southern Berkshire School District's share of this is about 80 new young and middle-aged adults moving into their communities every year. We don't even have the capacity for this to happen. The next slide, please. This slide is a visual of the increase in costs and the decline in state aid that we're experiencing. The red bar is state aid, the blue bar, the required minimum contribution from the state. Both school districts already spend significantly more than the minimum contribution. The dark blue line highest up is what we actually spend. This information led our committee to conclude that our current models of operation are not sustainable, meaning taxpayers will either need to agree to pay more at higher rates of increase for fewer kids, or programs and people will eventually need to be cut. Next. Thanks. So this led us to engage a research team led by Jake Eberwein, who is here if we need him to answer questions for us. We considered a number of options based on that, ranging from a more formalized specific collaboration to full combination of grades pre-K through 12. The model that our board selected was the model the research team recommended, which was to create a new pre-K through 12 regional school district that maintains all existing middle and elementary schools as they are, but creates a single high school in a new state-of-the-art facility to be built on the Great Barrington campus. Next. So why this model? Firstly, it gives us economies of scale and efficiencies that could lead to projected operating cost savings between $1.2 and $1.8 million each year. Secondly, it would give us more choices for students and more diverse support for students. And third, it will position us better to face the challenges that are coming our way in providing education for the children here. Next slide. So we lead with education because that's what school districts do. and yet it was not the charge to determine the educational direction of the school district. This will continue to be the role of the administration and staff of the school in concert with the school committee. That said, we did a great deal of research on the question of educational quality and developed the following guidelines. One is to ensure that all students in the 8 towns have equitable access to the broadest range of high-quality academic programming, enrichment activities, and targeted services. 2, with the aim of supporting student growth and development, to ensure that faculty and staff have the necessary resources, a robust network of peers, and access to high-quality professional learning and growth experiences that reflect contemporary research-validated teaching and learning practices. And 3, through combined efficiencies of scale to advance new programming that expands educational opportunities and improves outcomes for all of our students. I'd like to add that there is research about what is the optimal size for a high school, one in which there are enough students, but not so many that kids get lost. And that number is 600 to 900 students. The combined high school we're proposing is looking at somewhere just over 600 students. So these items served as our North Star as we looked at what we could gain through working as a single new 8-town district. At the elementary and middle school levels, where schools will stay as is, we anticipate increased opportunities for faculty and staff to share best practices and continue to provide the range of opportunities that are presently available. Next. At the high school level, the increased number of students will allow for the ability to offer all courses offered at either school to all students, to maintain large enough class size for diversity of experience, will free up teaching periods for additional electives or second sections, more advanced placement and advanced courses, and increased Chapter 74 career and vocational educational offerings and post-high school tracts, which I'll outline in the next slide. In our financial projections, no offerings are eliminated. Offerings are expanded. The high school design and its educational program is the focus of educational planning work that will happen over the next 6 to 12 months, which will lead to building design and then lead to engineering and a final project cost. High school visioning work was started under the Regional School District Planning Board, and we have a commitment from the Barr Foundation to fund the additional next steps in education and programming design for the new high school. This new school district will create an opportunity to offer more extracurricular activities, including those presently offered at both schools, more support for students with different needs, a more diverse guidance staff, more mental health and wellness offerings, and more importantly, a diverse student body will create a culture of broader inclusion and more people for marginalized groups. Next slide. While a high school built for Berkshire Hills Regional School District 3-town district will likely include 4 vocational offerings, the increased population will allow for up to 6 programs. The recommendations from the Ed Quality Subcommittee, approved by the full board, are what you're looking at here on this slide. A committee comprised of community members in the trades and industry, as well as youth development, developed preliminary recommendations with input from the larger community and students for career and vocational and technical education and the other offerings. Innovative pathways, electives, and internships are all additional ways to support students as they consider college and career pathways behind high school and in our community. The building committee will work with the state to determine which programs will be included and in what form. So from here, I'm going to turn it over to Peter Taylor, who's going to talk to you about the regional agreement itself and the details of the financial savings.
Thank you, Deb. Peter Taylor, 75 Lewis Avenue. As Deb said, my charge is to talk about the regional agreement and some of the financial considerations, especially as they pertain to Great Barrington. On the regional agreement, after the board decided to pursue the recommended course of action, we spent 10 months in a very methodical process hammering out the key provisions that are in the regional agreement. There were substantive debates across all of these issues, and we came up with provisions in the regional agreement that work for all 8 towns. First, on governance, which is the school committee. This actually took 3 meetings to talk about, and at the end, the committee felt strongly that we had to take a regional view as we thought about governance. Governance pertains to obviously budgets and to policy, but it also is ultimately responsible for listening and learning from education leaders on curriculum. So we decided that it was important that every town has a voice. Every town is representative, but we also wanted to reflect the size of Sheffield and the size of Great Barrington in terms of the number of students that are in the district. And so there's 1 representative from each community, and there's 2 from Sheffield and 3 from Great Barrington. We felt it was important that it was a workable number, and so that totals 11, which models closely what the existing school committees are. I'm going to go into greater detail on finance and debt. I want to talk a little bit about the transition period. Up until July of 2026, the 2 existing districts will continue to operate the 2 respective districts. There will be a transition committee that is first appointed and then will be elected in November of 2024. This transition committee will first be focused on combined high school in terms of the design and the program for that, and will also begin its work with education leaders around the curriculum. On the issue of school choice, existing students in their schools will remain in those schools. After the district, the new regional district goes live, students will be assigned to the school closest to them, and also, there will be, as space available, the opportunity for intra-district choice. For school closures, this does not pertain to the Berkshire Hills towns, but it is important to note that the provisions that we hammered out in the process for the regional agreement puts the threshold at a high level for any school closures. It requires a thorough feasibility study and opportunity for public input, and then 2/3 of the school committee have to vote in favor of it, and then 6 out of the 8 towns. At the bottom here, you'll see a quote that really reflects the due diligence that the Regional School District Planning Board did with the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education to vet this regional agreement, and it was conveyed to us that if the regional agreement is secured by the 8 towns, then the commissioner would stand ready to approve it. Next slide, please. This is a summary slide of the 2 main elements I want to discuss around finance. The first pertains to operating expenses, which refers to obviously the operations, personnel, expenses of running the school and the curriculum and extracurriculars, transportation and non-debt capital, and the second is capital expenses. On the operating expenses, a portion of that for the operating expenses required trade-offs because we recognized that we wanted to continue to invest in the highest quality education, but we also recognized that we couldn't have wild swings in assessment across the 8 towns in any given year. We needed to smooth that out. So it required some trade-offs for us in terms of operating expenses, and I'll show the illustration in terms of how it pertains to Great Barrington. On the capital expenses, obviously the shared high school, the combined high school will be an important investment that this district will make. On the existing debt, the legacy debt in Southern Berkshire for the renovations, the improvements to Mount Everett will stay with those 5 towns, and the future debt, the provisions for that are in the regional agreement, and there is a requirement of 2/3 of all voters in the 8 towns to approve future debt. So let's take a quick look at the net effects of the finance provisions as they pertain to Great Barrington. Next slide, please. You'll see in this slide a series of bar graphs here, and I want to focus you on 2026, which is the date that the merged district will come into effect. The blue bar is if there is no merger, and the gray bar is if there is a merger, and this pertains to Great Barrington. So you can see from the date that the district goes live, Great Barrington, in terms of assessments, annual assessments actually comes out paying less than it will if there was no merger. Why is this? The first is that there are gradual increases in assessments in the other towns. And second, the number of students that Great Barrington will send to the 8-town district will be proportionally less. Currently, we send about 75% of the students in Berkshire Hills, and in an 8-town merged district, that will drop to approximately 45%. Next slide. This just shows some illustration based on modeling that our project team did that further illustrates the point in terms of savings. There's 3 model years here, 2026, 2028, and 2030. And you'll see that the first year, Great Barrington will pay about $1 million less, in 2028, 1.8, and 2030, 2.4. Next slide, please. So I want to conclude by talking about the high school. First, there's been a lot of discussion about the $100 million estimate, and I want to just share briefly how we arrived at that. That was based on past planning of Berkshire Hills for a new high school, current data from the Massachusetts School Building Authority, and also some square footage estimates that were done, all led us to the $100 million estimated fee. And so this slide shows how Berkshire Hills Regional School District is better together as we think about a shared high school. If we go alone, building a new high school, it's estimated to be about $90 million. And if you see the total cost at the local level will be 46.3, and the annual debt service will be 2.73. If we approach the combined high school together with 8 towns, the regional agreement has Berkshire Hills communities covering 90% of that $100 million, but the big difference for us is that the state aid, which we get all of in the 3 Berkshire Hills communities, is 48.5% of $100 million. And then the 10% contribution from the 5 southern Berkshire Hills towns, they receive the 6% incentive for regionalization that the state offers, but we will receive together $4 million from the 5 southern Berkshire towns. And so if you see how all that nets out, the cost at the local level for the Berkshire Hills communities is 41.48 compared to 46.3 million, and our annual debt service correspondingly goes down as well. I want to just briefly talk through the debt contingency provision in the regional agreement, because there's been a lot of discussion about the potential implications if we vote tonight and the regional agreement is secured across all 8 towns. What might that happen? Because all 8 communities have to vote on the debt for the new high school once it's designed, and that is put out to the communities. What happens if one or more of the communities do not vote on that? Because it's going to require a 2/3 majority of all voters to pass that debt. So if we don't hit that threshold, what happens? And there is an unwind provision in the regional agreement. And so if the communities, through that 2/3 vote of all voters, do not past the debt, then the regional agreement automatically dissolves. And as we are going through the design process for the 8-town high school, there'll be a concurrent process to design a 3-community high school, and that will be ready to go. And we've been assured by the Massachusetts School Building Authority that that will not interrupt the Berkshire Hills communities if the regional agreement is dissolved and we retain the 3-community district, that we will not be disadvantaged in that in terms of securing, competing for and ultimately securing the support that we need to build that high school. So I'm going to say some concluding thoughts, and then Steve Bannon is going to come back up and share some concluding thoughts. And when I was thinking about this, I think it's evident to all of us that are here tonight that education is the most important thing that we do as a community and as a set of communities. It's reflected in our budget, but it's also reflected in our shared commitment to make sure that we're providing the finest educational opportunities, and so our young people have career opportunities. We're fortunate that this proposition before us tonight is bringing together 2 districts that have a history of educational excellence. It's seen in terms of how both districts prize innovation, how both districts have a track record of supporting students and also hiring and retaining high-quality faculty, which is the bedrock of any school district. Tonight we're at a crossroads, and we're asking you all and the voters in 7 other communities tonight to vote for a new path for how we can retain that tradition of educational excellence across our 8 communities in the face of declining enrollments and rising costs. We have, as Deb outlined, taken 3 years to study this very carefully. We have done outreach to parents and to students. We have done modeling and projections, and we have continued to share the background on the proposal as we've come to the vote. We've also shared with you tonight some of the benefits of economies of scale in terms of what we can do by coming together as 8 towns, which will be more difficult if we stay as a district of 3 communities. I want to ask you all to join with your 3 appointed representatives, Deb, Steve, and myself, in voting in support of this merger, but I also want to just highlight that your school committee last week, after getting a similar presentation and digging into it as a committee, also unanimously supported this proposal with 1 abstention. And so your appointed and elected representatives in this process have looked at it carefully and have put their support behind it. And I just want to ask you all tonight to similarly put your support through this proposal, because we are better together. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Steve with some concluding thoughts.
Steve, you're recognized.
Thank you. Steve Bannon, 19 Fairview Terrace. I'll be very brief. I've been fortunate enough to be on the Berkshire Hills Regional School District School Committee since 1997, the chair since 1999. I want to thank everyone for showing up tonight. It's not about whether you're in favor or opposed, but you're here because you want to do what's best for our students. Great Barrington citizens have always supported our educational programs. As Peter said, the Berkshire Hills Regional School District School Committee endorsed this warrant article on October 19th unanimously with 1 abstention. I think, and we think, what's best for our students and for the taxpayers of Great Barrington is to support this warrant article. And I ask that you consider voting yes on this article. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. I know we're enthusiastic, but applause slows things down. We have about 50 or 60 seats left in here. There's plenty of room for friendly people. There are a few more signing up outside. If you would like to make a statement or have a question, please come to the microphone. I'm likely to bounce all questions to our members of the committee. Jake Eberwein is also here in case somebody has a technical question. Surely somebody would like to speak on this motion.
Hello, Lindsay Berkowitz Brown. I'd like to speak on the motion.
Address?
27 Kirk Street.
Recognized.
I ask you tonight, neighbors, friends, to think about the student and educator experience and voice. Let's think of 2031 when students in our second and third grade classes will graduate. Do their needs and educational experiences matter? Or are appointed individuals whose children have already benefited from small class sizes, school choice, and multiple districts, instead of focusing on the implied needs of imagined future students who will live in a world we have yet to experience and cannot predict with accuracy, be making the decisions. The proposal in the warrant disregards the reality and experiences of current students, their parents, and the hardworking educational professionals at both districts. Under the proposed plan, a significant number of our students will face hour-long commutes on the bus to get to school and back each day. In a world here and now, where bus drivers are already in short supply, how will we get our children to school? Speakers have yet to address the ambiguous language that the current agreement contains. I've read every single word of this proposal and studied the implications of a shall versus a may in its language. The presentation we just heard promotes assumptions that will be robust educational offerings at our new school, but there are no guarantees about any educational offerings under this current merger agreement. Any and all programming will need to go through extensive research and approval through the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education and is not guaranteed. In addition, there will be higher student-to-teacher ratios. The agreement also doesn't address the impact this will certainly have on the educational professionals at both districts. Teachers, ESPs, and support faculty will inevitably lose their jobs at all levels. How many of my colleagues will lose their jobs? I've asked this question a number of times, and no one has given me a straight answer. Many of these educators, myself included, are the same young families that we should be protecting here in our community. With no job, it's certain that more of us will be forced to leave. If we as faculty are the bedrock, then where is our seat at the table? Why has no one listened to our needs? Why haven't my questions been answered? I am not opposed to a merger, and I want to make that clear. But this proposal needs to represent the stakeholders whose lives will be most impacted. I will be voting no on this proposal, and I invite you to think of the students and educators and to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Rich.
Good evening. My name is Rich Dehoney. I live at 74 Blue Hill Road, and I am one of your elected members to the Berkshire Hills Regional School District Committee. I'm also a 1992 graduate of this fine institution, and I have a daughter who graduated last year, and I have two who are here at Monument now. So I know a lot about this district from a lot of different angles. I'm here to speak very much in support of this merger. Before I get into the substance of my comments, though, I really want to thank our three members of the committee who you heard from here and everyone who served on this 8-town committee. It has been a model of how a deliberative process is supposed to work. At every step, they use proven evidence-based methods to come to sound conclusions. They have been fully transparent and fully dedicated to the mission of supporting our students. And no matter how this vote goes, no matter what direction these districts go in, we all are indebted to these people for the work that they did. So Peter really clearly walked through the financial aspect of this. I serve on the finance committee for the Berkshire Hills Regional School District. It's clear as day. It's a no-brainer. The economy of scale thing is real. There is massive redundancy between the two districts that can really have a benefit to the taxpayers. But that was never the reason why I supported a merger, and it's not why I'm here to support it tonight. It's to ensure the quality education that I received, that my kids are receiving, will continue on. And We are so lucky that Great Barrington Town Meeting gets behind us financially every year, but it's hard to appreciate the magic, what happens in our three buildings, but particularly in this building. As you heard, we currently have three vocational programs, three certified vocational programs. That's three more vocational programs than all of the surrounding districts have combined, because they have zero. And to understand the rigor that goes into these vocational programs, it's a multi-year certification process by the state. We just had our third, we're on our way to our fourth, and we're not going to stop there. And in order to continue to have those type of rich programs, you need kids. You need kids. Our class sizes float between slightly above 100 up to like a high of about 160 a few years ago. And that's really kind of at the basement of what you need to offer that kind of diversified programming. It goes without saying, Monument is recognized nationally as a feeder to elite universities. Just in last year's class, there's 5 kids currently at Ivy League schools. That doesn't include the valedictorian who's out at Stanford. We have almost 30 kids just from last year's class who are at schools that appear on U.S. News Report's top 100 colleges. And we have what is one of those important statistics to me is we have a very high rate of sending kids to college for the first time in their family. We do very well creating first-time college attendees, which is something I'm very, very proud of. But once again, to have that type of rigorous academic program, we have 14 AP classes, which is phenomenal for, I'm with you, Michael, a school this size, but you need kids. And we saw the slide with the population decline. Deb did point out, we're actually kind of seeing an uptick right now, but there's no certainty to that.
In conclusion,
we want to make sure that our kids have the same education I got 30 years ago that my kids are getting now. This merger is a good first step towards ensuring that. Thank you. I ask you all to vote for it.
Hello, I'm Phil Ornstein, 4 Alfred Road, and I'm also the chair of the Finance Committee. So this is a statement that was approved at our meeting of October 16. We, the members of the Great Barrington Finance Committee, believe it is appropriate for the committee to express its views regarding the potential financial impact of the proposed 8-town regional school district to be known as the Southern Berkshire Hills Regional School District. First of all, we want to thank the consulting team led by Jake Eberwine and Lucy Preshgar and the volunteers from all of the 8 participating towns for all of their dedication and hard work over the past 3.5 years. It has been a hugely complex and challenging project. We also want to thank our town representatives during this process, Peter Taylor, Deb Phillips, and Steve Bannon. Based solely on our review of the financial ramifications of the proposed merger, we vote to support the recommendation of the 8-town Regional School District Planning Board to proceed with the merger, especially in light of what the team noted as, quote, the fiscal challenges of declining enrollment, rising operating costs, relatively flat state aid, and the increasing needs of our students. Our opinion is based on what we see as the financial and budgetary implications of the proposed merger. It does not address the long list of non-financial benefits and challenges of the proposal, such as expanded educational choice, the difficulty of this transition, differing educational philosophies, and potential transportation-related issues. These matters are better addressed by others, including those involved in this process. Each year during our budget process, this committee is reminded of the magnitude of our town's investment in education. For fiscal year 2024, our school budget assessment was just under $20 million and more than half of the town's total budget. This budget is separately determined by the current Berkshire Hills School District and not subject to line-by-line review by the Great Barrington Finance Committee. We want to be clear that the Great Barrington taxpayers should not expect either the town school budget assessment or property tax rates to decline as a result of this merger. However, under the merger scenario, the percentage cost of the potential new high school attributable to Great Barrington will be less than it would be in the non-merger scenario because of the sharing arrangements with the other participating towns. Our hope and expectation is that the merger will cause our assessment to increase at a lower annual rate compared to what it would occur without the merger. The ability to achieve these cost savings is subject to many factors, some of which can be controlled locally and others that are out of our control. In particular, we are relying on the new district-wide school committee to make tough decisions in future years on how to pool resources and realize economies of scale and cost efficiencies. In addition, if the future enrollments differ dramatically from projections, the various town assessments will be affected. While the proposed new and renovated high school project is not being voted upon at this special town meeting, it is important to note that updated project costs and interest rates will have an effect on our budget. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is David Lippman. I live on 296 Division Street. I'm speaking in favor of our schools better together and want to make 2 points. One, I'm a child psychiatrist. I have had occasion to evaluate and treat members of the school community and Monument in particular. I think the merger would consolidate and improve mental health resources for Great Barrington students and for the adjacent community students. The second point I want to make is that with an increasing excellence of the centralized school district, I think that some families who currently send their children to prep schools would opt to continue with Monument because of its excellence. That's all.
Stephanie Bosco, 22 Avery Lane. This is a very difficult decision for me, but I have 2 children who graduated from the Berkshire Hills Regional School District, so I have wonderful things to say about it. One of my son-in-laws graduated from Southern Berkshire, and I have wonderful things to say about the program he's been through. We have 2 outstanding, amazingly, for a rural area, we have 2 outstanding school districts, and I would like, though, to not go on and on about that, because we've heard a lot about that, but just sort of get back to what, for me, is a focal point here. The people that I have spoken to and the presentations I've heard from the Southern Berkshire District who are opposed to this particular merger, are, I shouldn't say merger, they are not opposed to a merger. They will tell you flat out that they are still willing to think about or look at a merger. What they are opposing is this specific agreement. It's like, you know, when you are making a huge purchase or a commitment and you have to sign on the line and you say, wait, there's details in this contract that are not clear to me, that do not sound like they're going to be reconciled in a way that I would agree with. So I am not signing. So for that reason, and that reason alone, and I have heard both sides, and I've talked to numerous people, and I went to the Mahawi, and I heard both sides there, for the very reason that I would not sign this contract if it were my contract because of the ambiguities and what is not said in the contract, I'll be voting no. Thank you.
John Breasted again, 151 Christian Hill Road. I have a question of information through you, Mr. Moderator, to the appropriate member of the 8-Town Study Committee. In some literature, in a conversation this afternoon with Renee Wood, who's one of the South Berkshire opponents of the merger, of this proposal. She has the figure that the student to teacher ratio is 22 to 1. Do I have that right? Yeah, student to teacher ratio is 22 to 1, whether you vote yes or no. And the question, but she says that is lower than, that's higher than the current student to teacher ratio in both districts. And I'm wondering why the 8-Town Study Committee chose that ratio as kind of the optimum one to plan for.
Question is, why did the committee come up with an arrangement that has a student-to-teacher ratio of 22 to 1?
So when you look at student-to-teacher ratio, and Berkshire Hills has a very low student-to-teacher ratio throughout K through 12. When you look at it, realize that the merger is only occurring at the high school. The other elementary schools are staying the same, so that theirs will not change significantly. Right now, Southern Berkshire has somewhere in their senior class this year of 30 students. Merging is not going to change our ratio. Yes, in English and in math, you'll have a higher student-to-teacher ratio. We have a higher one now. In electives, it'll be lower. Having under 25 and we have in many classes under 20, it's not going to change significantly now. It depends which class you're looking at. High school has many, many different offerings, both Southern Berkshire and Berkshire Hills, and it's not going to change significantly. 22 to 1 is not a bad ratio, but in electives, it'll be much lower.
Thank you. You have 30 more seconds, John. Are you done? Good. Who is next? Karen, are you waiting to Tibet cleanup?
No.
Okay. Just wondering.
Hi, Mr. Moderator. I have a question. My name is Annie Alquist. I live at 219 South Street. My question is about the building down in Southern Berkshire. So I agree with one of the other folks who talked about how it's the details. Like, I'm totally for the merger, and I think the committee's stated goals of utilizing economies of scale, taking the best of both districts and elevating that, combining, like, all those things are great, and I agree with them 100%. I just don't really see how this plan gets us there. To me, it seems like what we're saying that we want to do that, but what we're actually doing is taking all of the things that Southern Berkshire brings to the table and getting rid of them and starting from scratch. So that's my first just point. And then my second is a question. So one of the amazing things that Southern Berkshire brings to the table is that campus. It's beautiful, it's 85 acres. The building isn't brand new, but it is a very, very beautiful. There's tons of natural light and incredible classrooms. And so I guess my question is, what's gonna happen to the building? The second question is, why wouldn't we want to combine the high schools into that building? One response to that I've heard is that it's too far, but at the Mahawi, you guys proposed this beautiful plan for how it's not too far for Southern Berkshire kids to come up here, so why is it too far for our kids to go down there? And then the third part of it is, how are you going to convince me as a taxpayer in Great Barrington to approve $100 to $150 million new building when we will have this beautiful building sitting down there potentially empty?
Okay, Steve.
I'll take the infrastructure part, Deb will take the educational part, we'll split. So the reason that the group chose, and let me just tell you, the Regional School District Planning Board had more members from Southern Berkshire than Berkshire Hills, and the reason for that, it was 3 from every town. They have 5 towns, we have 3. And it's still, all of this still passed overwhelmingly. So the notion that Southern Berkshire was against this, some members were, but it clearly would not have passed if all of Southern Berkshire was against this. The reason it was chosen here as opposed to down there were a couple reasons. One is that Monument is more centrally located. So if you look at a map of the 2 districts, it's clear that Monument is more centrally located. Sheffield is farther away, more towards the Connecticut border. As far as an example, and someone mentioned it, busing, all the consultants that have been hired have said that the bus rides will be the same or slightly lower than right now in both districts. That's number one. So that's the reason. The Regional School District Planning Board wasn't charged with or does not have all the answers, never pretended to. So what happens to the Mount Everett building, which is a very nice building, will be up to the new school committee. It will be owned by the new school committee, and it will be up to that school committee to decide. There are two school committees. There'll be a transitional one, then a permanent one. So that's where we're leaving it at that. But that's why we're staying, the recommendation was here as opposed to down there. That building is not large enough to fit our students. So there would have to be an addition to it. That building is not structurally big enough to fit all of our students.
Deb, you want to say something also?
Sure, I'll add two things. The other thing is that if we're going to build vocational programs, we can't build them down there in what already exists. And right now we're in the pipeline to get funding to create the vocational programs up here. The second, and this didn't come out in the end question, but was the question of, it sounds like we're taking whatever Southern Berkshire has and just moving it here. It really is building a new school district, taking the best from both school districts, maintaining the Southern Berkshire, the Sheffield campus, which is beautiful, and maintaining the Berkshire Hills campus, which is also beautiful. The high school is what is going to be on this campus, and in it we will have programming from both districts that will be put together with representatives, staff, faculty, administration from both districts, because they will all be part of the new district. So the idea that somehow we're absorbing one school district into the other academically is not what we're doing. We're creating a brand new entity that will take the people, the ideas, the programs, the best of the best, bring it all together for the benefit of all the students.
Anybody else want to speak to this? Please come to the microphone, otherwise I will call a vote. Please scurry up to the microphone. There are 465 of us crammed into this auditorium. Thank you all for being friendly. But that does mean that if you think you want to talk, you may need 30 seconds of lead time. I haven't called for the vote yet. I have not called for the vote yet. I have not called for the vote yet.
Okay.
Please, I have not called for the vote yet.
All right. Hi, everyone. So sorry to be the person in between you and the vote. So this is riveting. I'll be quick. So for what it's worth.
Name and address, please.
Oh, Amal Hussein, 31 Blue Hill Road. And so I'm very much for the merge. Yay, thank you for all the hard work. I was just curious because there was a very compelling argument made by a person earlier about jobs, and I was wondering if somebody could speak to that. Do we have clarity on that? Again, for the merger, but like due diligence, would really like to understand more about this job situation, because we don't want to harm our staff and our educational staff.
So there are a couple things about personnel. One is that Berkshire Hills has always had the philosophy to draw the best teachers we can. We want to be in the top 25% in Berkshire County. Having said that, there will have to be accommodations for Southern Berkshire teachers who get paid less. There is no, again, this is a K through 12 merger, but K through 8 stays the same. So K through 8, we shouldn't even be talking about jobs lost because there will be no changes in their buildings, maybe changes in curriculum or something the school committee decides. As far as the high school is concerned, what I envision and what the committee, I believe, envisions is that there will be no layoffs. That by attrition, by retirement, there may be people not replaced, but that goes on over 2, 3, or 4 years or whatever it takes. But there is not going to be layoffs to start this.
Thank you. Seeing nobody else approaching one more person approaching the microphone. Okay.
Sorry if that's all right. Hi, my name's Noah Goebel. I live at 32 Russell Street, Great Barrington. And I guess I just had a question sort of for the board. I haven't followed this too deeply. I'm not really sure either way. But I just wanted to, I guess, hear a little bit more about the last section of this this document with the table about what voting yes would mean, what voting no would mean, that was provided by the Our Schools Better Together. I guess the last one, the section titled Our Future, where voting no, it talks about how if we vote no here, we most likely would not get the opportunity to have this happen again, I guess, to have another merger. Is that, because I know it seems like a lot of people are like unhappy with the details of it or have questions about that. Is there really no later chance of doing this again, considering that it seems like if we just change some details of it, potentially people would be happy, I guess?
So this process has gone on for about 3.5 years. And if you look at the 8town.org website, you'll see the amount of effort that's gone into it. Could this occur again if 7 towns tonight approve this and Egremont is the only one who votes no? It's possible. We have not had that discussion. As far as we've looked, is to try to get it to the voters right now. So is it unlikely? I've been on the school committee a long time. We've had discussions, never this in depth, 3 or 4 times with both Southern Berkshire, Lee, Lennox, etc. This is our best chance. If it fails tonight, especially in 2 or 3 towns, Berkshire Hills definitely is going to move on with a new building, which we would anyways, because our students deserve that. So I think this is our best chance.
Charles Wampton, 48 Blue Hill Road. I just want to say something that's probably going to be in the negative, but this school here has been around 50 years. And to replace it, you're talking another 100 million. We've run this school down in the last 50 years with no upkeep. If the town ends up building another campus, this becomes another white elephant. We have Ciro's High School, windows knocked out. We have the Hoosie Dome, needs help. And I can just see this piece, you're going to have all the windows knocked out, and this is just going to be another eyesore on Route 7.
Any other comment? Well, okay, Steve would like to respond to that, okay? Quickly.
Yeah, I just want to defend the people who work in this building. When we've built our other buildings, we actually got extra points for the amount of maintenance we do on our buildings. So at least for the custodians and the people, the maintenance crew, I think it's unfair. If this building is added on to, clearly we're going to do work on this building. If we build a new building, this building will come down. It will not be empty. This building does not go back to the town of Great Barrington because this building belongs to the regional school district. Searles and Housatonic before the merger, belonged to the town of Great Barrington for that. So those went back to the town. If you want to blame the town and put my other hat on, I'll take the blame. But don't blame the school district.
Okay. I believe that concludes the people who have shown interest in speaking, so I think it is time to vote on this item. You have the special ballot for this, clearly to be filled in like a multiple choice test. Yes or no, fill in the entire circle and deposit them in the boxes in the mezzanine. And please return to your seat because we have 2 more warrant items to cover. I'm sure none of you will walk out the door because you want to find out what the count of the vote is.
Oh, no, most people.
Proceeding to Article 2.
Get that out of here. All right, boys and girls, we need to settle down.
Yeah, that's my job, Karen. That's my job.
Oh, good.
If you have a motion, please make your motion.
One moment. I'm Karen Smith, 5 Monument Valley Road, Chair of the Community Preservation Committee. Article 2, voted that the town appropriate from the Community Preservation Fund FY24 revenues and from the fund balance the following amounts recommended by the Community Preservation Committee, with each item to be considered a separate appropriation. Project, Construct, Inc., Emergency Family Housing, total request $92,400. The Ramsdale Library, $50,000. 3, Community Land Trust, River Run Farm, $300,000, total $442,400.
Motion has been made and seconded. I believe you suggested that we divide this into the three items and vote on each one separately.
That would be accurate,
Is
sir.
that your preference? Since
That
there
is
are
my
only three,
preference.
I think that makes some sense rather than go through the dance of holding things. Let's address first number 1, the Construct Emergency Family Housing. Is there a presentation about that in detail?
Mr. Moderator, Chris Rembold, Castle Hill Avenue, your Assistant Town Manager. I'd like to give a quick slide on each one before you proceed to the vote.
Go ahead.
Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight. Usually you hear from the Community Preservation Committee each May. This year, knowing there was a special town meeting and looking at the funds available in the Community Preservation Fund, the committee did decide to open up a special round of potential grant awards for projects that were eligible and worthy and that could prove that there was an urgent need for the funding. So tonight, we have 3 projects you see here on the map in Houstonic, down in central part of town, and also the Construct site down in the southern part of town. Go ahead, Mark. Next slide. The first one is Construct's emergency family housing proposal. This is a site that Construct owns. It's a 4-bedroom house where families who are experiencing housing pressures because of the pandemic can be temporarily housed. This program will provide the staff and support for these families to live here on a temporary basis. It'll serve several families over the course of a year, and the Community Preservation Committee recommends this grant. The next project is from the Library Board of Trustees. This grant will allow the board to move forward with the required next step to secure state grants to renovate the Ramsdale Library. The next step being hiring a professional to prepare a building program feasibility study. And the committee recommends that as well. And the last one tonight is a grant to the Community Land Trust to acquire 200 North Plain Road, a farm and residence in the heart of Great Barrington's breadbasket, if you will. It's a 79-acre parcel. The Land Trust will own the land and execute a long-term lease to the owners of off-the-shelf farm. The project will preserve the farm for farm use in perpetuity, since the Land Trust will own the land. It won't go back on the market ever. It'll always be used for farm use and farm housing, and it also protects a vast swath of habitat and floodplain area along the Houstonic River. And the Community Preservation Committee recommends this grant as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm going to take the initiative and divide this into the 3 items. Are there any questions or comments on project number 1? If there are not, I'll call for a vote on that one separately, that appropriation separately right now. Charles has a comment.
Well, I just want to put Charles Williamson, 48 Blue Hill Road. I just want to put my 2 cents worth in about the Community Preservation Act. This tax was put in a few years back. It's another 3% added to the homeowners' taxes, so you can circumvent and do what you want with my money. And I'm against all 3 of these. And a perfect example is you just had the Cove Bowling Lanes bought for $1 million, and we turned around and gave a millionaire $50,000 to put fire protection into the Cove Bowling Lanes. That's my money given to a rich person. He made 5% in 6 months. I don't see anybody making 5% but the rich, and they're making it off us poor people. I'm getting sick and tired of you taking our money and you calling it fees or whatever you want to call it and pay for this stuff. I'm against every one. And this farmland down here, I think is great. But then it comes off the tax roll, and then we end up having to pay more taxes. Thanks for the taxes.
Any other comments on project number 1? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote on that appropriation separately. All in favor, please raise your cards. All opposed? The motion passes with respect to project number 1. Other questions or comments on project number 2? The library project.
Rob Braddock, 8 Blue Hill Lane. Question, just curious what the $50,000 would be used for, and a statement in principle. Next to our educational system, our public library defines this community. It is a critical asset, and it needs further investment. But I'd like to know where this $50K is going to. Thank you.
Chris, do you have an answer for that?
Sure, I'll just reiterate what I said in my introduction. This is for a building program feasibility study, and I'd invite a member of the Board of Trustees if they'd like to explain that further.
Pat Hollenbeck, 1075 Main Street, Housatonic, Chairman of the Trustees. This is going for the state grant where the state hopefully will pay for 60% of the renovation. So there's some stipulations involved. Because it's an old building, we need to do it's called a user assessment, where they go through and everything to find out where the codes are wrong and everything else like that. It's called the other aspect is a building program where you have to find out what the community needs, where the 30-year horizon is what they want to know. They want to know this building is going to be good for 30 years to come. So that's essentially it.
Any other comments or questions on the money for the feasibility study for improvements at the library in Housatonic? Somebody scrambling down the stairs to speak? Yes.
My name is Joe Aberdale. I live at 20 Linda Lane, Housatonic. I'm also the DPW superintendent of Great Barrington. I guess I just want people to know one thing. Investigating what the town wants to spend on evaluating the Ramsdale Library is a great idea. But what I also want you to know is the DPW, with the town meeting money that was approved in May, we have an asset management program being conducted right now that we hope to see preliminary results in later in October, early in November. So we're already spending $50,000 of taxpayer money and $50,000 of grant money to evaluate 6 of the town buildings this year. So what we're looking to do with this motion is you may be doing what we're already doing. So I just wanted people to aware that that's already happening out there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions on the Ramsdale Library Fund? Seeing none, all in favor of item 2 on this motion, raise your cards. Thank you. All opposed? Motion carries with respect to project 2. Questions or comments on project 3, the Community Land Trust property? Seeing none, call for a vote on that one. All in favor, please raise your cards. All opposed? Motion carries with respect to that item 3. All 3 projects are approved. Last item on the agenda, Article 3, is there a motion? Somebody called me saying they were going to make a motion. Please come to the microphone, state your name and address.
Good evening, Mr. Monitor. My name is Karen Johnson. I live at 371 State Road, and I am asking for a vote of yes on the proposed Warrant 3.
Right now, what you're to do is to make a motion, and you sent me the language of a motion. And right now, what you do is read that.
All right. Okay. Warrant 3 asks that the currently proposed project by a special interest group should not take place at the Mason Public Library. A yes vote preserves
Your motion is that, I think your motion just ended, right? You moved that the project not be done, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. Is there a second? Motion has been made and seconded. Would you like to make a statement in support of your motion?
Thank you, Mr. Monitor. I believe that this property is public property. We should all have a vote. We should all have a say in what should remain as public property. A special interest group wants to change that, and I do not think it is appropriate. In 1913, when the colonial building was built, it was given to the town as public property. It's for all of us. It's considered as the most beautiful small town library in America. It is a colonial building. The lawn space highlights this building, and it also shows us as a town of all. It is all of ours. This current proposal takes that away from us. We want to have a vote. I'm so glad so many people came and are willing to vote. And I'm asking for a yes vote to preserve our library lawn. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker. Is there anybody else who would like to speak?
Yes, good evening. My name is Dubois Thomas, 67 Christian Hill Road, also a member of the W.B. Du Bois Sculpture Project Board. Take issue with the implication of a special interest group. The only special interest of our group is to provide a gift for the town of Great Barrington and to honor a great American.
Please, no demonstrations, please.
It's been several years of a transparent process where there's been fundraising. There's no public dollars for this project at this time. The project has been approved by the Historic Commission and the Select Board. There have been multiple opportunities for the issues to be heard. I suggest that we vote no on this motion so that we can expedite the improvement of our public library. Thank you.
My name is Bobby Houston, 25 Humphrey Street. Mr. Moderator, I move to call the question.
Vote made and seconded to call the question. This requires a 2/3 vote. It's not debatable. All in favor of calling the question and voting right now, please raise your cards. Right now, we are voting on ending debate and moving to a final vote. This is a procedural motion right now to call the question.
We would like to have a special secret ballot.
At this point, it's too late to make that motion. I'm sorry.
I had that in writing as a request.
I know you did, but at this point, it's too late to make it. I suggested you make it with your main motion.
I move that we have a secret ballot.
That motion is out of order. All those opposed to taking a vote right now, please raise your cards. Thank you. We'll take a vote right now. I'll take it. Please raise your cards. Bear in mind, a yes vote now is in opposition to the planned project. A no vote keeps the project going as it's planned. All those in favor of the motion, please raise your cards. Thank you. All those opposed, raise your cards. The motion fails. No. It is not in order to applaud when somebody loses a vote. Sorry. You probably are all wondering what happened tonight. Okay. A little suspense you're going to have. The town of West Stockbridge voted yes on the school, 86 to 14. The town of Stockbridge voted yes on the school, 107 to 14. And Great Barrington voted yes on the school, 374 to 88. Is there any other, I see no other business. Is there a motion to dissolve this meeting?
So moved.
Seconded, all in favor? Opposed? No one's opposed. Thank you very much. The meeting is dissolved at 1 o'clock.